beneath the frozen skies of the Arctic, survival has always depended on ingenuity, courage, and an unbreakable bond with nature. Among the most powerful symbols of this relationship is the walrus, a massive creature of the ice sea weighing over a ton, with tusks like ivory spears. For indigenous Arctic communities, the walrus is far more than an animal. It is food, warmth, light tools, and above all, tradition. For centuries, hunters have ventured onto drifting ice floes or desolate northern shores in small boats guided by generations of inherited wisdom. Walrus hunting is never random. The people carefully observe migration routes, wind direction, and ice movements, choosing their moment to approach a resting herd in near silence. The goal is not sport or excess, but balance to take just enough to sustain families through the long months of winter. Each hunt is a test of skill and solidarity. Rifles, harpoons tied with ropes, and spears are used not only to bring down a walrus, but to keep it from sinking into the icy waters. Once the animal falls, the hunters gather quickly, securing the massive body to the ice or pulling it onto the boat. What follows is a ritual as old as memory itself. The butchering of the walrus performed with both practicality and reverence. Once a walrus is brought down, the hunters waste no time. The Arctic offers no comfort for hesitation. On the bare ice, or sometimes even aboard the boat, knives as long as a man's forearm slice carefully through the thick hide. The skin is removed in broad slabs, tough, heavy, and incredibly resilient. This skin, once dried and treated, becomes rope clothing, boat coverings, or protective layers against the cutting winds. Beneath the skin lies a dense, glistening layer of blubber. This fat is both treasure and necessity. Hunters carve it into blocks, some of which are rendered into oil for lamps that burn steadily through endless polar nights, others stored as food to provide life-saving calories during the leanest months. For people who endure temperatures far below zero, blubber is not only sustenance, it is survival itself. The meat, dark red and coarse, is equally precious. Divided evenly among the community, it is eaten fresh during celebrations, boiled or roasted to feed hungry families, or sliced thin and left to freeze dry in the open air for storage. Preserved properly, it will last for months, sustaining households when the sea turns too treacherous for hunting. Then come the tusks, long curved spears of ivory polished by the ocean. Far more than decoration, they are shaped into tools, weapons, and art. In traditional ceremonies, tusks stand as symbols of strength and victory, reminders of the hunter's courage and the animal's spirit. The bones, strong and dense, are not wasted either. They are repurposed into structural frames for shelters, sled runners, and even intricate carvings passed down through generations. In this cycle, nothing is discarded. Each tendon becomes string, each sinew a bowline, each piece of the animal transformed into something useful. For Arctic people, the walrus is not just a meal. It is a complete resource, a partner in survival, and a gift that must be honored. When the butchering ends, the work of preservation begins. In the Arctic, every piece of food must be handled with foresight because the next storm could last for weeks. Hunters and families carve the meat into smaller cuts, laying them on wooden racks or hanging them from simple frames where the freezing winds act as natural dryers. Some pieces are buried in carefully dug pits lined with stone, then sealed beneath layers of ice and snow. This ancient method of cold storage can keep food fresh for months, sometimes through the entire winter. The blubber is treated with equal care. Large chunks are boiled slowly until they yield precious oil. This oil fills animal skin pouches and carved containers ready to fuel lamps that burn throughout the endless polar nights. Without this light, homes would sink into total darkness. Without this warmth, survival would be nearly impossible. Even the smell of burning blubber carries meaning, a reminder of life carried forward by the animal sacrifice. But the hunt is not only about storing food, it is a social and spiritual event. The elders lead ceremonies on the shore, offering prayers and words of gratitude to the walrus and the sea. Children gather close, listening to chants and stories that link the present to ancestors who hunted under the same icy skies. These rituals teach that hunting is not just an act of taking, but also of giving back, of respecting balance, so that the sea continues to provide. When the hunters return to the village, the entire community joins in. Families gather to divide the meat fairly. The largest portions go to elders, widows, or those unable to hunt. No household is left behind. Around fires, walrus meat is cooked into communal meals, shared with laughter songs and stories of the chase. In these moments, survival turns into celebration, hardship becomes unity, and every bite is infused with gratitude. The tusks and bones, polished and carved, often become ceremonial objects. A pair of gleaming tusks may be raised during gatherings as symbols of strength. Bones may be transformed into drums, their deep rhythms echoing across the snowy landscape. Through these objects, the walrus continues to live on, not only in body, but also in spirit. A presence felt in daily life and in every tradition that binds the community together. For centuries, walrus hunting has been more than a livelihood. It has been the foundation of education. In Arctic villages, learning does not begin in classrooms, but on the ice. Young boys and girls grow up listening to stories told by elders, how to track walrus herds across drifting ice, how to read the wind to approach without being detected, how to sharpen knives and prepare ropes strong enough to hold a struggling giant of the sea. These stories are lessons disguised as tales carried from one generation to the next, like invisible threads of survival. When the time comes, young hunters join their fathers, mothers, or uncles on the first journey to the ice. They watch, listen, and absorb. A boy may be given a rope to tie a girl, may be asked to cut strips of fat, both learning that every small task contributes to the survival of the group. To witness a walrus fall, to touch its thick hide and understand the weight of its life is both a rite of passage and a moment of humility. The animal is not only prey, it is a teacher shaping character through responsibility. In the evenings after the hunt, children gather around oil lamps glowing with blubber flame. Elders carve tusks into tools, while speaking of the old ways, explaining why no part of the walrus must ever be wasted. These lessons are not written in books, but engraved in memory that bones can become needles, skin can cover boats, fat can fuel light, and meat can sustain families through the dark winter. It is an education born from necessity, but also from deep respect for balance. As modern life stretches into the Arctic, these traditions face new challenges. Snowmobiles may replace sleds, rifles may replace spears, and motorboats may chase herds across wider distances. But within these changes, the spirit of tradition remains. Even with GPS and radio communication, hunters still pause before the kill to whisper words of thanks. Even with insulated houses and imported foods, walrus oil lamps are still lit during ceremonies to remind the community of their roots. This adaptation shows resilience. Indigenous communities know that survival means embracing technology without forgetting values. Young people may study in schools during the week learning math and science, but on weekends they join family hunts learning ancient knowledge about the sea ice and animals. This blending of worlds ensures that their heritage does not vanish, but evolves to remain alive in a new age. The walrus, therefore, is more than food. It is the link between past and future, the bridge that allows children to step confidently into modern society without losing their ancestral wisdom. Through each hunt, they are reminded of who they are, where they come from, and why respect for nature must guide every action. In Arctic villages, hunting a walrus is never just about survival. Each hunt carries with it a profound sense of cultural identity. When a massive walrus falls on the ice, the moment is marked with gratitude rather than celebration. Prayers are whispered to honor the animal's spirit, acknowledging the sacrifice that allows the community to live. Elders remind the young that without this respect, the balance with nature would be broken and misfortune would follow. During winter gatherings, songs are sung with the beat of drums made from walrus skin, echoing through small wooden houses lit by oil lamps fueled with walrus blubber. These songs are not only entertainment, but also oral histories, recounting great hunts, dangerous storms, and the lessons passed down by ancestors. The community sees each walrus as both provider and teacher, a living symbol of endurance, strength, and generosity. Even as the outside world introduces new foods, technologies, and conveniences, these traditions remain deeply rooted. Modern rifles may replace harpoons, and motorboats may replace wooden sleds, but the unwritten laws of respect and conservation remain unchanged. Only what is needed is taken. Nothing is wasted. Every tusk, tendon, bone, and strip of skin continues to hold meaning and use. This reverence extends beyond survival. For the community, the walrus embodies the link between the human spirit and the harsh Arctic. Each successful hunt is also a reminder that resilience, cooperation, and gratitude are the only ways to endure. For children, joining their first hunt is more than a practical experience. It is an initiation into a living tradition that has carried their people across centuries of frozen winds and endless ice. On the global stage, these practices also raise an important question. How do we as humanity balance cultural heritage with modern values of conservation and sustainability? For Arctic communities, the answer has always been clear. Take only what is needed, use everything fully, and respect the life given. This philosophy, born from centuries of survival in an unforgiving environment, is a lesson the wider world can learn from. As the Arctic faces rapid climate change, melting ice, and shifting ecosystems, the walrus remains a powerful symbol. Its survival reflects not only the resilience of the species, but also the resilience of the people who depend on it. Protecting walrus habitats, honoring indigenous traditions, and recognizing the cultural significance of the hunt are all part of ensuring that this ancient relationship continues for generations to come. When night falls over the Arctic and the glow of oil lamps flickers inside snow-covered houses, stories of the walrus still rise with the smoke. Children fall asleep to the rhythm of drums, carrying with them the sound of their ancestors. The walrus is not just food, not just an animal of the sea. It is history, culture, spirit, and survival, embodied in one powerful creature. And so each hunt remains a sacred chapter in the never-ending story of human life intertwined with nature at the top of the world.